So Chris and I were having a discussion over some of the common questions that our growers come up with when they're asking us, hey, what exactly sets your products apart? Have you had some good ones recently?
Oh yeah, like what does Thioplex actually do? What is it? What's in it?
So it's funny that we've got a product called Thioplex that UltraGrow has created as a proprietary product. There are a lot on the market that are trying to inoculate your soil with calcium, sulfate, and potentially elemental sulfur, but not many that work nearly as well as Thioplex. And having a combination of calcium, of sulfate, and sulfur in a tetrahedral pattern where you can kick off elemental sulfur as well as sulfate, so having the effect of acidifying the soil a little bit in the root zone with a 100% soluble calcium source tends to open up the ground a little more, flush a little more salt through the ground. Having that calcium as a divalent electron, double charge. When it attaches to the soil, it kicks off 2 sodium. And then calcium being that fat product, when it sits in the ground and wedges it open a little better, creates more pore space for the soil solution to filter down through your soil. So that takes those extra sodium molecules, washes them through, and then the humic, fulvic, all the organic acid that's with it then tends to hold more of the nutrients in place.
What's the differences between our product and other companies' products?
Some of the other products they're wonderful products, but they don't necessarily put all the ingredients together. By adding a biological component and also adding an organic acid component to the Thioplex, we have found that it makes it that much more efficacious at 1, getting the water down, 2, soluble calcium, sulfate, elemental sulfur actually into the plant and doing what it's supposed to do and opening up the ground.
And would you say our product's a lot cleaner than others, or?
We pride ourselves on our solubility and also our low salinity index. So we're putting less salt out and also creating products that are much more soluble. So when you put it out, it's actually in a form and ready in soil solution so a plant can drink it in.
Would you say mixing Thioplex with our soil treatment is something that would be helpful to clients, to soil, to plants?
Sure, and that's probably where UltraGrow really cut its teeth. Is the soil treatment is a flagship product of UltraGrow's. So we have a little bit of nitrogen in the product, we've got a little bit of calcium in the product, but what really sets it apart is Dr. Sidhu at Fresno State makes the biological component. There are a lot of products on the market that claim they've got the biological effect to help inoculate the ground, but in essence, it is spent material that has come from a biological reaction. We have live cultures that are brewed. We've got these fun vats of all kinds of bubbling brew that's going on, but 3 different forms of Pseudomonas. We've got some Actinomycetes and Bacillus involved. What we're doing is we're re-inoculating the ground with this bacteria, with different fungi that are helping to absorb more nutrients, collect more nutrients, hold more moisture, and also re-inoculate the nutrients that are in the ground that you may have put out in the last couple of years in forms of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, sulfur, magnesium that were in a form that wasn't soluble, or they reacted with each other and tied back up. Well, this becomes food for this biology, which in turn then spits out that much more of the nutrition you've already put out, and you get to reuse it. So sometimes you'll see a secondary effect of products that have been put out before where now they are reconstituted actually into the soil solution and drunk up by the plant.
And with the Cal9 product, can that be something that you can put in just through the soil? Is that something that can be foliar applied? What do you do with our Cal9 product?
Cal9 is a great proprietary product in the fact that it can be applied foliarly or with the soil. And when we decide, are we going to use Thioplex or are we going to use Cal9 with our soil treatment in the ground, we first want to look at your sulfate levels when we get your soil test back. So if your sulfate levels are through the roof or you're a heavy user of sulfuric acid, we may use Cal9, which is a much more calcium-based product, than Thioplex, which has more sulfur and sulfate involved to it. So we can switch that up. But it also can be used foliarly, which with an organic acid blend that's put in with it, we find that you're actually getting better absorption of the calcium and the nitrogen through the leaf. The organic acid, if you think about humic, it's a very large molecule, so think of it as the buffet, where fulvic is going to be more of the plate. So what we're doing is adding the actual plate to the plant. I use the analogy with NPK lots of times with my growers that they think they're putting out a bigger block or a bigger slug of nutrition. So they're saying, I've given it this much, I've got that available. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like to use the analogy of if you're hungry and I give you a steak, I satisfy that hunger. if you're hungry and I give you a frozen half a side of beef, what are you going to do with that? Well, you've got a lot of it.
Right.
There's nothing you can do with it, or it may be rotten by the time you're actually able to eat the darn thing. So if you think about that in an NPK style of blend, think about what soil treatment, Cal-9 and Thioplex is doing as well in making nutrients more available in smaller fractions to the plant.
So are there advantages to applying during the day, at night, with this product, Cal-9, when you are doing it foliar applied?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's lots of theories behind when you apply foliar nutrition. So we found that nutrition is actually absorbed through the leaves, not necessarily through the stomata like was previously thought. So in turn, when there's a lot of transpiration going on, the stomata's open, your leaf structure and all that waxy cuticles also open as well, which will allow for more penetration. But especially a product like Cal-9 that's got some nitrogen to it, you go out and spray that at 85 degrees or above and you're going to burn some things. So you want to hit the point where it's active, where the waxy layers, the lipids have actually broken down and they're open, but it's getting into the point where it's going to be cool, so the moisture in your spray rig hopefully cools some things down, and then you get into that nighttime temps. And also some of the new theory is that your foliage that has now done photosynthesis all day long is taking nutrients and pushing them back down towards the roots. So the xylem phloem movement is going from up during transpiration, evapotranspiration, and coming back down in the evening. So that's still cutting edge research that's happening, but they're finding now that whole symbiotic relationship of the root exudates feeding the bugs creating more nutrition that's going back up through the top during ET, is a pretty fun dance that Mother Nature is putting on our plants to get them to optimal yield.